I stood in the kitchen, blood beating at the corner of my mouth. She whispered, "Not today. Today is Thanksgiving." They swatted my hand away from the phone, told me to keep the peace, but I didn't hang up. I just switched it to record. When the doorbell rang in the middle of dinner, it wasn't relatives, it was the police, and they weren't there for the turkey. My name is Leslie Burke. I'm 33 years old, and I'm a professional fraud investigator. I work for a niche cybersecurity firm in Boulder called Halcyon Risk Labs. We don't just find weaknesses in code, we find them in people. We trace digital footprints and real-world deceptions to find out who is stealing, who is lying, and how they're doing it. My specialty is the quiet, insidious fraud that hides in plain sight, the kind that happens inside families and trusted circles. I live in Boulder, a world of microbreweries, rock climbers, and tech startups. My father, Elliot Mercer, lives a world away, metaphorically, up in Lyons Canyon. He's 68, and for the last 6 weeks, has been recovering from a hip replacement that went sideways. An infection, a revision, more pain. His world has shrunk to the 4 walls of the house he shares with his wife. My stepmother, Vivian Kane, is 49. She is a woman who seems perpetually bathed in the soft focus filter of an Instagram post. Her charm is a broadcast signal, wide and effective, designed for an audience. When the audience is gone, when the doors close, the signal cuts off. What's left is cold, efficient, and hard. Then there is my half-sister, Rhea. At 26, Rhea lives a life curated for a screen. Her validation comes from likes. Her opinions are formed by influencers, and her grasp on reality seems as tenuous as the Wi-Fi signal in the canyon. She is pliable, easily led by the promise of approval, which makes her Vivian's perfect ally. I was driving up the canyon road, the pre-Thanksgiving chill stripping the last leaves from the aspens. I had committed to 2 days, 48 hours. My encrypted work laptop was on the passenger seat, its ballistic nylon case feeling like armor. Tucked inside was a solid-state drive containing the case files for a multi-state network of durable power of attorney abuse. It was a project that required absolute focus, the kind I knew I wouldn't find here. The house is not a cabin, it's a modern cabin, which means it's all glass, cold-rolled steel, and polished concrete floors that would be beautiful in an architecture magazine, but are unforgiving on a 68-year-old man's new hip. It sits on the edge of the canyon, stark and severe against the rock. The first thing you notice is the smart doorbell. Its camera is wide-angled, its single blue eye a silent, recording sentinel. It captures the entire flagstone porch, a perfect piece of domestic surveillance. I parked and pulled my overnight bag from the trunk, slinging the laptop case over my shoulder. The drive had been tense. I was walking into the one environment I couldn't analyze with detachment. The family has a creed, an unspoken, ironclad rule that governs all interactions. Family business stays in the family. It's a genteel, respectable-sounding phrase for what happens here stays here. It means we don't air dirty laundry. We don't make a scene. And the ultimate extension of that rule, the one that hangs heaviest on holidays, is that we do not, under any circumstances, involve outsiders, especially not the police. Holidays are for performance, for showing the world a united, happy front. I let myself in. The house smelled of pine cleaner and something savory already roasting. Hours too early. Vivian was all about the performance. Elliot was in his specialized recliner in the great room, the one the insurance paid for. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished. The recovery was hollowing him out. "Leslie," he said, and the relief in his voice was so thick it almost choked me. He started to push himself up. "No, stay put. Dad." I crossed the cold floor to him, bending to give him a hug that was more of a careful lean against his good shoulder. "She's here!" Vivian trilled, emerging from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron that looked like it had never seen a grease stain. She was immaculate, blonde hair in a perfect, casual twist, cashmere sweater, yoga mom chic. She came over and offered me an air kiss that landed somewhere near my ear. "We're so glad you could make it," Rhea, your sister's here. Rhea drifted in from the hallway, phone in hand, her thumb scrolling. Oh, hey, Les. She didn't look up. Did you see that travel blogger? The one in Bali? She just posted the most amazing… Rhea, put the phone down and say hello to your sister, Vivian said, her voice dropping just a half octave, the steel already showing. Rhea's head snapped up, a flash of irritation followed by practiced compliance. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. She put the phone in her back pocket, but her hand stayed on it. Happy Thanksgiving, I replied, forcing a smile. I turned back to my father. How are you feeling? Really? Before he could answer, Vivian was there, gliding between us. He's doing wonderfully. Aren't you, Elliot? The doctor is so pleased. She had a small, color-coded pill organizer in her hand. It's time for your 2 o'clock, dear. I watched. This was the moment. The transfer of power. She popped the lid for the afternoon slot and tipped 2 pills into her own palm. Then she held out the plastic water cup with the bent straw. He took it obediently, as he drank. Vivian's other hand was busy. She picked up his wallet from the side table. And Elliot, she said, her voice a sweet, patient murmur. I'm ordering the new cushion for your chair. The memory foam one. What was the PIN for the debit card again, sweetie? I keep forgetting to write it down. I froze, my gaze locked on them. My father, hazy from the painkillers, looked at her, his brow furrowed in concentration. He recited the 4 digits. I watched Vivian, her back mostly to me, type the numbers directly into her own smartphone, into a notes app. Thank you, darling, she cooed, snapping the wallet shut and placing it back, not where it was, but on a higher shelf, just slightly out of his easy reach. You just rest. She controlled his medication, and she had his bank PIN. My stomach tightened. This wasn't caregiving. This was control. I set my bags down on the massive granite kitchen island. I'll just get settled in, I said, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. And that's when I saw it. Sitting next to a bowl of decorative gourds was a stark white business envelope. The return address was Northwind Realty. It was a cheap logo, a pixelated mountain peak. It was addressed to Elliot. I could see the document through the window of the envelope. The header read, Quitclaim deed, expedited transfer. My blood went cold. A quitclaim deed is the fastest way to transfer property and the hardest to reverse. It's a massive red flag in any investigation. I picked it up. Through the thin paper, I could see the signature line at the bottom. E. Mercer. The signature was shaky, yes, but it was too rounded, too floral. My father's signature was sharp, impatient, all angles. This was not his hand. What's this? I asked, holding it up. Vivian spun around from the sink, her smile faltering for a millisecond before it snapped back into place. Oh, just some boring paperwork. Honey, we're restructuring some assets for tax purposes. You know. This is a quitclaim deed for the lake house, I said. It wasn't a question. Vivian's eyes hardened. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. It's complicated. Leslie, your father and I are handling it. I looked past her, to my father. He was staring at his hands in his lap. Dad, are you selling the lake house? He wouldn't meet my eyes. He gave a small, weary wave of his hand. Leslie, please, it's adult business. Just, not today. Let's just have a nice holiday. Not today. The familiar refrain. The conversation killer. The wall. Right, I said, my voice flat. I placed the envelope back on the counter. Precisely where I had found it. I had my data points. Control of medication. Control of finances. And now, a highly suspicious expedited transfer of a major asset with a forged signature. I grabbed my bags. I'll be in the guest room. I shut the door. The silence of the room, a welcome relief. I set my laptop on the flimsy desk. I didn't unpack. I sat on the edge of the bed, the stiff, unused quilt beneath me, and pulled out my phone. I opened my end-to-end encrypted messaging app. the one I used only for Halcyon. My colleague, Ben, was online. I typed, "Going dark for 24 hours. Family obligations. Low coverage in the canyon." It was a necessary lie. The house had 4 bars of 5G and a fiber optic internet connection. I wasn't in a coverage dead zone. I was in a jurisdiction where my normal rules didn't apply. I was behind the firewall. Ben's reply was instant. "Copy. Don't let the turkeys get you down. Ping me if the SSD melts." I closed the app. I sat there for a long time, the weight of the laptop in its bag, the SSD inside holding the stories of other people's betrayals, feeling heavy as an anchor. What no one in this house knew, what I had never shared with them, was that my work at Halcyon had involved me directly in 3 major elder abuse cases. I had testified twice. I had seen the spreadsheets that detailed the slow, systematic draining of retirement accounts. I had analyzed the metadata on photos sent to concerned relatives, photos proving the victim was fine, while the timestamps showed they were taken weeks apart. I knew the playbook. I knew the language of isolation, the casual gaslighting, the weaponization of privacy and family business. Vivian wasn't just a charming, controlling stepmother. She was a case study. My silence, as I walked in, as I watched her take the pin, as I put the envelope down, was not the silence of a complicit daughter. It was the silence of a professional. When you walk into a situation, you don't announce your presence. You don't show your hand. You observe. You document. You gather your facts. You build your case. This wasn't a 2-day visit anymore. I was on the job. And the first rule of an investigation is that the subject must never know they are being watched. The afternoon before Thanksgiving was a slow-motion tightening of a wire. I had spent the morning in the guest room, ostensibly working, but really I was running background checks on Northwind Realty. It was, as I suspected, a shell corporation registered just 6 months prior. I was building a timeline. I came out for water around noon. The house was quiet. Elliot was napping in his recliner, the television muttering about football. Rhea was, predictably, in her room, likely filming a "get ready with me" video for the holiday. Vivian was in the kitchen, aggressively chopping celery. The rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack of the knife on the block was the only sound. I went to the large, stainless steel refrigerator to get a bottle of water. I had my hand on the handle when Vivian moved, fast, from the island. "I need the cranberry sauce," she snapped. Yanking the heavy door open, she didn't look. She pulled it with full force. The edge of the steel-clad door slammed directly into the back of my hand, crushing my knuckles against the adjoining wall. A sharp electric pain shot up my arm. "Damn it, Vivian," I hissed, pulling my hand back. "Watch where you're standing, Leslie," she said, her back to me as she rummaged inside. "You did that on purpose." It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact. She straightened up, a plastic bag of cranberries in her hand, and turned to face me. Her smile was gone. The cold, efficient mask was in its place. "You're awfully sensitive. You come into my house, you start poking around in things that aren't your concern, and now you're accusing me of assault over a refrigerator door? You need to grow up." "Poking around?" I repeated, rubbing my already swelling knuckles. "My father's assets are my concern. That quitclaim deed is my concern. His medication is my concern." "Your father," she said, stepping closer, her voice dropping to a low, venomous whisper, "is my husband. His care is my business, not yours. You are a guest here, a temporary, disruptive guest. I saw you take his pin. Vivian, I saw the signature on that deed. You're committing fraud." Her eyes narrowed. It happened so fast I barely had time to register the intent. Her hand came up, not in a wild swing, but in a short, sharp, deliberate arc. It was a slap, but it was calculated. It wasn't the flat palm, which might have left a red mark. It was a slightly cupped hand, designed more for impact and sound. It connected with the side of my face, hard enough to rock my head back. But she had miscalculated. She was wearing her rings, A big, gaudy, multi-stone cluster. The prongs of the largest stone caught the corner of my mouth, slicing the skin. I tasted it instantly, the hot metallic tang of blood. The sound, a sharp crack, was loud in the kitchen. "Oh my God, Rhea." I turned. She was standing in the doorway to the hall, her phone up, recording. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. She had captured it, or at least, the immediate aftermath. Vivian turned on her, a predator's swivel. "Rhea, put that phone down, now." "Mom, you hit her." "Rhea, delete that. Do not make a scene. Do not shame this family," Vivian commanded, her voice like ice. "Delete it right now." Rhea's gaze flickered between me and Vivian. The fear of her stepmother won out over the shock of the assault. Her thumbs moved on the screen. Okay, I'm deleting it. It's gone." She lowered the phone, her hand trembling. "What is going on in here?" My father's voice, thick with sleep and medication. He was pushing himself up from his recliner, his face a mask of pained confusion. He saw me, saw my hand covering my mouth. He saw Vivian's rigid posture. "Leslie and I had a disagreement," Vivian said smoothly, turning to him, her face instantly transforming into a mask of concern. "She's just stressed from work." "She has blood on her mouth," Elliot said, his eyes fixing on me. I lowered my hand. The cut wasn't deep, but it was bleeding steadily. "She slapped me," I said, my voice flat, cold. Elliot looked at his wife. "Vivian?" "It was an accident," Vivian said. "I was gesturing, and she turned. It's nothing." "An accident," I repeated. My father looked at the floor. He looked at me, at his wife, at the half-prepped Thanksgiving meal. I saw the calculation in his eyes. I saw the profound, bone-deep exhaustion. I saw his desperate need for peace, even a fraudulent one. "Leslie," he said, and his voice was a plea. "Please, today is not the day. Don't turn Thanksgiving into a courtroom. Let's just let it go, for me." I held his gaze. This was the wall again. "Not today." I said nothing. I turned, walked past Rhea, and went straight to the downstairs bathroom. I locked the door. The cut was a clean, quarter-inch tear, right at the vermilion border of my lip. It was already swelling. I washed it, carefully, with cold water and soap, letting it bleed for a moment to clear any debris. I pressed a clean piece of tissue to it. Then, I began my work. From my overnight bag, I retrieved a small, sterile first aid kit. Inside was a flexible, 6-inch vinyl ruler. I dried my face. I held the ruler up to the cut, its millimeter markings clear. I opened my phone's camera, checked the settings, natural light, no flash, high resolution. I took 5 pictures, a wide shot of my face, a medium shot, a close-up of the cut with the ruler for scale, another close-up without the ruler, a final shot from a 45-degree angle to show the depth, forensic standard. Next, I opened my secure apps. I activated a background audio recording app. It was designed to be undetectable, its icon disguised as a simple utility. I set the gain to high sensitivity. I slipped the phone into my pocket. I unlocked the bathroom and went back to the kitchen. The room was empty. My father had returned to his chair. Vivian was gone, likely to her room. Rhea had evaporated. I retrieved my phone, walked to the kitchen island, and set it down. Screen off, near the bowl of decorative gourds. I casually tossed a linen dish towel over it, leaving the microphone array clear. It was now recording everything in the great room and kitchen. I went back to my camera settings. I enabled live photo. It's an investigator's gift. It captures 1.5 seconds of video and audio before you press the shutter, and 1.5 seconds after. It turns a static image into a 3-second context file. I knew the fight had been loud. The house was all hard surfaces. Sound carried. I walked to the front door. The smart doorbell was, as I'd noted, aimed at the porch, but its microphone was sensitive. I opened the doorbell's app on my phone. I rewound the event log. There it was, a loud noise event. timestamp 2 minutes prior. I played the clip. It was audio only, the video feed showing an empty porch, but the sound was crystal clear. My voice. Committing fraud. Vivian's voice, high and sharp. You are a guest here. And then, muffled but distinct, the smack of the slap. It was followed by Vivian's voice, louder this time, directed at Rhea in the hall. Delete that. Do not shame this family. And then, clearest of all, as she must have moved closer to the door, you will not call anyone. I saved the file. I exported it. I had it. Audio of the assault, followed by an explicit order to destroy evidence and a command to remain silent. My hand was throbbing. My lip was stinging. The adrenaline was high, but it was a cold, clear adrenaline. I pulled out my phone again. Opening my encrypted text messages, I scrolled to Marin. Marin is my best friend. She's a pediatric ER nurse, and she knows my family situation. We have codes. I typed SOS 3. SOS 1 meant call 911 immediately. Life in danger. SOS 2 meant call 911 for a third party. SOS 3, the one I had just sent, meant adult-on-adult violence. No immediate weapon, but situation is volatile and escalating. It meant, I am documenting. Do not call yet. Stand by. Be my remote witness. Her reply came in 10 seconds. Standing by. Ping me every 30 minutes or I call the county sheriff. Copy, I replied. I closed the app. My next instinct was to do what any citizen should. I opened my phone's dialer. My thumb hovered over the number for the Boulder County Sheriff's non-emergency line. I was a victim of assault. I had evidence. This was the protocol. Leslie? My father's voice. I turned. He was standing by his recliner, leaning heavily on his walker. His face was gray. What are you doing, honey? He asked. He had seen the phone, seen the look on my face. I'm reporting an assault, Dad. His face crumpled. No, please. He limped toward me, his hand outstretched. I'm begging you. Leslie, not today. It's Thanksgiving. Our neighbors are coming tomorrow. What will they say? It will destroy her. It will destroy this family. She assaulted me, Dad. She is stealing from you. It was a mistake. She's under stress. I'm under stress, he pleaded, his voice cracking. I can't have police here. Not today. Please, just let it be. For me, I'm asking you, as your father. I looked at his desperate, pleading, humiliated face. He was a man terrified of making a scene, a man who would rather absorb the poison than cause a commotion. If I called the police now, he would deny it. He would side with her. It would be my word against theirs, and I would be the hysterical, disruptive daughter. I would lose him. I wouldn't be able to protect him. I lowered the phone. My strategy had to change. This was no longer an extraction. I couldn't save him against his will. Not yet. This was now a long-form investigation. I would not call the non-emergency line. I would pivot. I would preserve the evidence. I would bide my time. And I would gather all the witnesses for the one event no one could escape, the Thanksgiving dinner. I would turn their performance into my deposition. I went back to the guest room. I locked the door. I sat at the desk and opened my laptop. I didn't access the Halcyon files. I opened my phone's automation shortcuts. I was connected to the house's smart home system. The network was robust. I created a new routine. It was complex, with 3 distinct actions. I set the voice trigger. It had to be something innocuous, something I could say in a kitchen. The trigger? Alexa, timer gravy. The action. A script would run silently. It would take the last 30 minutes of rolling audio from my phone's background recorder, the photos I had taken, the saved clip from the smart doorbell, and package them into a single, encrypted, zip file. It would then upload that file via a secure tunnel to my private cloud server, the one my attorney, Amaya Cole, had a standing access key to. I tested it. Alexa, Set a kitchen timer for 10 minutes. The routine ignored it. I cleared my throat and spoke the trigger in a calm, normal voice. Alexa, timer gravy. The smart speaker in the corner of the room chirped. Gravy timer, starting now. On my laptop screen, I watched the upload progress bar. 2 minutes. The package was sent. I now had an exfiltration plan for my data. I had my audio running. I had my camera ready. I had my remote witness on standby. The battle wasn't going to be won today, but the evidence was being secured. An hour later, there was a tentative peace, the kind that comes after an explosion, when everyone is afraid to move. I had cleaned the cut. It was a neat, sharp line, throbbing in time with my pulse. I had texted Marin my 30-minute all-clear signal. I found them in the great room. Elliot was back in his recliner, a blanket over his lap. Vivian was sitting on the ottoman near him, her face a picture of serene concern. Rhea was perched on the edge of the sofa, phone face down on her knee, a hostage to the tension. Leslie, darling, Vivian said, her voice dripping with manufactured pity. She looked at me, her eyes flicking to my lip. Are you feeling better? I didn't answer. I looked at my father. Vivian told me what happened, Elliot said. His voice was tired, devoid of accusation. He just wanted this to be over. Oh, I said, my voice flat. What happened, Dad? She said you were rushing into the kitchen, just as she was opening the cabinet, that you weren't looking and you struck the corner of the door. Vivian's eyes were locked on me, daring me to contradict. She said your lipstick smeared, that it looked worse than it was. Lipstick. I wasn't wearing any. The sheer audacity of the lie was breathtaking. It was a narrative designed for him, to minimize, to blame me, and to erase the violence in one clean stroke. I turned my gaze to Rhea. Rhea, is that what you saw? Rhea flushed, a blotchy red creeping up her neck. She picked at the seam of her jeans. I mean, it happened really fast. Les, I just heard the bang. She wouldn't look at me. She looked at Vivian. A quick, fearful glance. Mom said you were upset about the realty papers. You were probably just distracted. It's just a cut. She was parroting the story. The fear of being the one to ruin the holiday was stronger than the truth she had filmed and deleted. She was collateral damage, pressed into service as a co-conspirator. I looked back at my father. He held up a hand, weak but insistent. Enough. His eyes were cloudy, the painkillers and the conflict mixing into a gray fog. It's done. It was an accident. It's Thanksgiving tomorrow. He took a breath and delivered the final verdict, the family motto. Not today. Leslie, we are not doing this today. The case was closed. The official record, written by Vivian and ratified by Elliot, was that I was clumsy and hysterical. My blood was lipstick. My assault was an accident. The domestic prison walls were now invisible, but solid. I needed to leave, to get my father out, but I couldn't force him, and now I was realizing I might not be able to leave myself. 2 hours later, I went to grab my car keys from the hook by the door. I was planning to drive into Lyon, just to get cell service away from the house, to make a call. The keys weren't there. My small leather key fob with the Halcyon Risk Labs tag, gone. Looking for these? Vivian was in the dining room, arranging silverware. My keys were on the polished wood table. I found them on the floor by the guest room. You're so scattered today. Leslie, you should be more careful. Someone could just pick them up. She slid them across the table, stopping them just short of my reach, forcing me to step forward and take them. It was a power play, a demonstration. I control your environment. I control your movement. I took them without a word. I slipped them into my pocket, but as I walked back to my room, I took the fob off the ring. I palmed the small, white AirTag that was also on the ring. I walked into the living room, where my father's wallet still sat on the high shelf, the one Vivian had put it on. With my back to the kitchen, I pretended to look at a photo on the mantel. My hand went up, and I slipped the AirTag deep into the cash fold of his wallet. If she took his wallet, I would know where it went. I went to my room and locked the door. I sat on the bed and activated the silent SOS feature on my Apple Watch. 3 clicks of the side button, and it would ping my location to Marin and local emergency services without a sound. Then, I opened my laptop. I didn't log into my work server. I opened a web-based, encrypted email service. I logged into an account I used for anonymous tips. Whistlebox. At a secure provider. I began a new draft. The recipient was the chief deputy prosecutor for Boulder County, a man I had briefed on a case 6 months ago. The subject line was blank. In the body, I wrote, requesting consultation regarding suspected elder abuse, financial exploitation, and adult assault. Victim, Elliot Mercer, DOB. His birth date. Primary suspect, Vivian Kane. Location, the Lions Canyon address. I attached the files, the 5 high-resolution photos of my cut, the ruler visible, the MP3 file from the smart doorbell, clearly capturing the sound of the slap, and Vivian's order to delete it. I didn't hit send. I saved it as a draft. It was my dead man's switch, if I went silent. Marin had the password to this account. My own assault was documented. Now, I had to focus on the primary victim, Elliot. I needed to check his medication. I went to the master bathroom. It was a huge, spa-like room, all marble and glass. Vivian's cosmetics were arranged like a department store counter. His things were confined to one corner. The pill bottle was there. Benzodiazepine, a low dose, for anxiety and sleep, critical during recovery. I picked it up. The prescription was filled 8 days ago, a 30-day supply. I twisted the cap and poured the small white pills into my hand. I counted. There were 11 pills left. A 30-day supply, filled 8 days ago. He should have had 22 pills remaining, assuming he took 1 per day as prescribed. Even if he took 2, he should have had 14. 11 meant he was either being dangerously over-medicated or the pills were being diverted. I put them back, my hand steady. I heard the floorboard creak in the hall. Vivian was at the door. "Can I help you, Leslie?" "I was looking for an aspirin," I said, turning, my face calm. She smiled, a thin, tight expression. "You're in my bathroom." "My mistake." I started to walk past her. She gestured to the pill bottle still in my hand. "You know, I'm glad you reminded me," she said, taking it from me. "I meant to tell Elliot. I spilled a few of these down the sink drain last night. I am just so clumsy sometimes." The lie was perfect. It was immediate. It was plausible. And it was entirely unprovable. It explained the discrepancy. She knew I had been counting. She was 1 step ahead. I went back to the kitchen. The trap was tightening. I needed more. The house was quiet. I took the recycling bin from under the sink, claiming I was going to run it out to the garage. I sifted through it on the kitchen island, shielded by the granite block. Junk mail, a wine bottle, a catalog, and there, at the bottom, crumpled, was a bank receipt. Blue Jay Bank. My heart hammered. It was a withdrawal receipt, dated 2 days ago. The amount? $9,500. Not $10,000. $10,000 is the limit. Any cash transaction over $10,000 requires the bank to file a BTR, a currency transaction report, with the federal government. A withdrawal of $9,500 is a classic structuring tactic, designed specifically to fly under that legal reporting radar. This wasn't random. This was calculated. This was criminal. I couldn't take the receipt. She would know I had been digging. I laid it flat on the counter. Next to the junk mail, I took my phone, enabled the live photo, and under the guise of taking a picture of a funny ad, I took a high-resolution photo of the receipt. The 1.5 seconds of audio captured the sound of my breathing, the rustle of the paper. I crumpled the receipt and put it back, burying it deep. I took a fresh paper towel, folded the receipt inside it, and slid the small, white square into my pocket, a physical backup. I took the recycling out, my mind racing. I needed context. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Caleb, our closest neighbor, a retired firefighter who lived a quarter-mile down the road. The text read, "Hey Leslie, saw your car. Happy tea giving. You guys having work done? Saw a strange truck with a trailer parked up by your garage late last night. Looked like movers. But in the dark, just checking all is well." I stared at the screen. The final piece clicked into place, locking with a terrible, cold certainty. 1. The fraudulent quitclaim deed. Transferring the lake house. 2. The structured cash withdrawal of $9,500, just under the reporting limit. 3. The control and probable over-medication with benzodiazepines to keep him confused and compliant. 4. A strange truck at night, as if assets were being moved quietly. Vivian wasn't just a greedy, abusive wife. She was executing a plan. She was liquidating my father's assets, draining his cash, and keeping him drugged while she did it. This was not a family dispute. This was a multifaceted felony. My not-today father was the victim of a textbook case of elder abuse, and he was using Thanksgiving as a shield to protect his own predator. I texted Caleb back. "Thanks, Caleb. Just Vivian cleaning out the old storage. All good. Happy Thanksgiving." I put my phone away. The investigation was complete. The time for passive observation was over. It was time to build the trap. I locked the guest room door. The not-today defense mechanism of my family was a firewall, but it worked both ways. It kept them from seeing me. 2. I sat at the desk, the encrypted laptop humming. The time for emotional reaction was over. It was time for procedure. My lip throbbed, a dull physical reminder of the stakes. My father was isolated, drugged, and being systematically robbed. Thanksgiving was the cover. I was the only one who saw it. First, synchronize. I needed my metadata to be unimpeachable. I ran a command line script to force sync my laptop's clock with the National Institute of Standards and Technology's time server in Boulder. My timestamps were now legally locked to the atomic clock. Next, chain of custody. I took the SD card from my phone. I inserted it into the laptop's reader. I created a new encrypted volume on my external solid-state drive, the one I'd brought from Halcyon. I copied the raw image files, the 5 high-resolution photos of my face, the one of the Blue Jay bank receipt. I copied the audio files, the 30-second clip from the smart doorbell, the new 30-minute background recording I'd captured from the kitchen that included the gaslighting exchange. I didn't just drag and drop. I used a forensic imaging tool to create a perfect bit-for-bit copy, preserving all original metadata. I logged every step in a new text file. Photos and audio transferred from iPhone internal memory to SanDisk SD card. SD card image directly to Samsung T7 SSD encrypted volume. Case file EM1123. Then, I ran the final command. A SHA-256 checksum. A long alphanumeric string appeared on my screen, a unique digital fingerprint for the entire evidence package. If a single pixel in those photos was ever changed, that hash would break. My evidence was now secure, time-stamped, and verifiable. Now, the official channels. I opened a secure portal to the Colorado Adult Protective Services online reporting system. This was the formal, required first step. I filled in the fields. Victim: Elliot Mercer. Age: 68. Suspected abuser: Vivian Kane, spouse. Allegations: financial exploitation, medical control neglect, psychological abuse. In the summary field, I was concise. Victim is post-operative, recovery compromised. Suspect, spouse, has assumed control of all finances and medication. Victim appears over-sedated. Suspect has engaged in structured cash withdrawals. See attached receipt, $9,500. Suspect is attempting expedited, non-arm's-length transfer of real estate, Northwind Realty, quitclaim deed, with a suspected forged signature. Reporter, daughter, Leslie Burke, was physically assaulted by suspect today. See attached photos, audio, when attempting to intervene. Suspect is isolating victim and controlling access. I attached the photos of my cut. the audio file of the slap, and the photo of the bank receipt. I hit submit. A case number was generated. Co-APS 2538. I now had a file open with the state. APS is slow. It's social services. I needed law enforcement. I still had the whistlebox draft email to the deputy DA at the same Vrain County office. I added the new APS case number to the subject line. This legitimized it, moved it from family squabble to active APS case. I did not hit send, not yet. First, I sent a separate, clean message from my work email to his professional email. Subject: consultation request, sensitive matter. Body: Mr. Harris, Leslie Burke from Halcyon Risk. I have an urgent, time-sensitive matter regarding financial exploitation of an at-risk adult in your jurisdiction. An APS report has been filed. I have a secure package ready for your review, requesting 5 minutes of your time. This is professional, not personal. It was a risk, but it was a legal, professional channel. I was leveraging my reputation to protect my father. Now, the deep dive, the financials. Years ago, my father had given me read-only online access to his main checking and investment accounts. It was a just-in-case measure when he first married Vivian. One I'm sure she didn't know about. I had never used it. I used it now. I opened a secure browser. Routing through a VPN, I logged into Blue Jay Bank. I pulled the last 90 days of statements. The regular debits were there. Mortgage, utilities, the golf club. Then, in the last 6 weeks, since his surgery, it changed. Weekly cash withdrawals. Never more than $2,000. But then, the big one, the $9,500 withdrawal from 2 days ago. It was a glaring anomaly. Next, the signature. This was my specialty. I had the photo of the Northwind Realty quitclaim deed signature. I needed a baseline, a known, authentic signature. In my personal encrypted cloud, I had scans of old family documents. I found one. A mortgage application for the main house, dated 10 years ago. A wet signature from Elliot Mercer, clear and sharp. I opened the forensic handwriting analysis software we use at Halcyon. I loaded the scanned, authentic signature. I loaded the photo of the forged signature. The software mapped the vector points, the pressure, the spacing. My father's real signature, a sharp, angular E, a truncated Mercer, high velocity, low pen pressure. The forgery, a soft, looped E, a carefully rounded M, heavy, consistent pressure. The slow, deliberate strokes of someone trying to draw his name, not write it. The software flagged it. 92% probability of non-authentication. It was a forgery. Now the medical evidence. I had my pill count. 11 pills remaining from a 30-day supply filled only 8 days ago. Vivian's excuse. Spilled them. I needed the official record. My father had put me on his HIPAA release form years ago. I called the pharmacy's 24-hour automated line. I navigated the menu. Press 3 for refill status. I entered his birth date and the prescription number. The automated voice was mechanical. Prescription. Number. Diazepam. Filled on November 15th. 30 pills. Refill available on December 15th. Then, I accessed the history. The voice continued. Previous fill date. November 1st. 30 pills. Previous fill date. October 20th. 30 pills. I froze. He was refilling a 30-day supply, on average, every 11 days. He had received 2 early refills. Vivian hadn't spilled a few. She was either stockpiling the drugs or dangerously overdosing him. Both were felony-level abuse. I hung up and immediately called his primary care physician's office. It was after hours. The night before Thanksgiving, I got the answering service. "This is Leslie Burke, daughter of Elliot Mercer," I said, my voice steady, professional. "This is an urgent medical query. I am with my father and have reviewed his benzodiazepine prescription. The pharmacy log shows 2 early refills in the last 45 days, and his current pill count is dangerously low, suggesting a severe discrepancy. I am concerned about compliance, diversion, and potential oversedation. Please have the doctor call me immediately. I left my number. I didn't expect a call back, but the service would page the on-call doctor. A message would be delivered. My phone rang 5 minutes later, a private number. This is Dr. Pham. I'm the on-call for Dr. Elliott's regular physician. I got your page. What's this about the prescription? I explained the early refills, the count, my father's lethargy. That is extremely concerning, Dr. Pham said, his voice sharp. That regimen is 1 pill at night, as needed. He should not be out. I did not authorize those early fills. The pharmacy must have overridden. I want to see him. Can you bring him in tomorrow? Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, doctor. I don't care, he said. The clinic is closed, but I'll be there, 9 a.m. Can you do that? I'm not sure, I said, thinking of the keys. His wife, Vivian, is controlling his movement. A pause. I see. Okay, let me know. If he cannot come to me, I will be forced to call in a welfare check. That is my duty. I will plan to call you at 9 a.m. tomorrow for a status update. If you don't answer, I'm calling the sheriff. Thank you. Doctor. I hung up. I now had a medical ally with a deadline. I went back to the APS report. I updated the file, adding a new note. Confirmed pharmacy log shows 2 early refills of benzodiazepine. Spoke with on-call Dr. Pham, who confirmed this is against regimen. Suspect, Vivian, is in control of medication, flagging for suspected medical control and coercive chemical restraint. Next, my civil lawyer, Amaya Cole. She was my friend, but she was also my bulldog. I sent her a privileged email. Subject: Request for emergency TPO. Amaya, I wrote. I have a situation. My father. I am at the house. I have evidence of financial exploitation, forgery, and physical assault against me. I am filing with APS and the DA. I need you to prep an emergency temporary protection order and a petition to strip Vivian Kane of power of attorney. Effective immediately. I am attaching a full preliminary report and the evidence package. I'm going to trigger this tomorrow. I need you ready. I attached the Shea 256 checksummed file. She would know what to do. One last call. I knew, from my work, who the on-call judge for the district was. It was a holiday rotation. I didn't call him, but I called his clerk's emergency line. I left a message. This is Leslie Burke, investigator at Halcyon Risk. I am working with the Saini Vrain DA's office and APS on an active elder abuse case. The victim is at risk and being isolated. We anticipate needing an emergency welfare check and removal order within the next 24 hours. Based on thresholds of imminent threat and financial coercion, I am providing a heads up that the package will be coming from the DA for the judge's review. I leaned back. My room was dark, save for the glow of the monitor. In 3 hours, I had moved from victim to investigator. I had built a case. I had notified social services, law enforcement, the doctor, and the judiciary. The not today barrier was about to be breached. Vivian thought she was protected by the holiday. She didn't realize that procedures don't take holidays. The net was in place. All I had to do was pull it. And Thanksgiving dinner was the perfect place to do it. Thanksgiving Day dawned cold and bright. The sky an unforgiving Colorado blue. The house was filled with the forced, brittle cheer of a family performing normalcy. Vivian was in her element, orchestrating the meal. Her voice a syrupy sweet contrast to the ice in her eyes every time she looked at me. My lip had scabbed over, a dark, vertical line that I didn't bother to cover with makeup. It was a data point, a visual reminder. My father was installed in his recliner, watching the parade on television, his gaze distant. Vivian was monitoring his medication, handing him his pills with a glass of water, cooing about how he needed to keep his strength up for the big meal. I watched her, noting the time. Knowing that Dr. Pham was expecting my call at 9 a.m., I had already decided to miss it. His call to the sheriff, prompted by my silence, would become another layer in the official record. My own preparations were already in motion. I had a clear objective: turn the Thanksgiving dinner table into a secure, recorded, and witnessed environment. My first move was the witness. I texted Caleb, our neighbor. "Hey Caleb, happy Thanksgiving. We are drowning in pie over here. Any chance you could swing by around 6:30 to pick one up? Would love for you to say hi to Dad." His reply was quick. "Happy Thanksgiving, Leslie. Wouldn't miss it. See you at 6:30. Tell Elliot I've got a new fly tying pattern to show him." Perfect. Caleb was neutral, observant, and a retired firefighter. He was, by nature, a professional witness. He would arrive just as the main course was ending, at the precise moment I intended to spring the trap. Next, the audio. The phone on the island was good, but it was stationary. I needed audio from the table itself, clear and undeniable. I found Rhea in her room, agonizing over which filter to use on a photo of the uncooked turkey. "Hey, Rhea," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Vivian wants the dinner to be perfect. You know that playlist Dad likes? The old 60s soul one?" She looked up, annoyed. "Yeah, so?" "I've got a new wireless speaker. It's amazing," I said, pulling a small black device from my pocket. It was not a speaker. It was a high-gain wireless microphone, designed to look like a sleek piece of tech. "But I can't get it to pair with the house system. Can you set it up? You're so much better at this stuff. Just put it on the table, somewhere in the middle, and link it to the main speakers for the music." Her vanity was the hook. "Ugh, the Sonos interface is so buggy." She snatched it from my hand. "Fine, I'll do it. It'll probably take me 2 seconds. "Thanks, Rhea. You're a lifesaver. Just make sure it's on for when we sit down." I watched her walk away, tapping the device, already pairing it. She would connect it to the house speakers, and in doing so, she would be patching a live, high-fidelity microphone directly into the system, a system I could access. Now, video. Audio was good, but a jury responds to video. I went to the guest room and retrieved my old work phone. It was wiped of any sensitive data, but the camera was excellent. I returned to the great room. The dining table was set against the backdrop of a large built-in bookshelf. It was cluttered with Vivian's decorating, porcelain birds, art books, vases. It was the perfect cover. I found a spot behind a thick biography of some titan of industry. I propped the phone up, angled perfectly, its small black lens peeking through a gap. It captured the entire table, with a clear view of Vivian's and my father's chairs. I plugged its charger into a hidden outlet. I opened a simple, secure streaming app I'd used for surveillance work. I set it to live stream to a private, locked channel on my iCloud account. I hit go. The screen went dark, appearing to be off, but the camera was live. My digital net was now in place. Audio and video were being captured and streamed off-site in real time. Next, the physical environment. Vivian had set the table. She had placed Elliot at the head, near the kitchen, where she could control his food, his drink, his medication. I waited until she was in the pantry. "Hey, Dad," I said, walking over to him. "The glare from the window over there is going to be right in your eyes. Let's move your chair." Before he could protest, I was moving the heavy oak chair. I repositioned his place setting from the head of the table to the side closest to the front door, the primary exit. "Oh, this is much better," I said, fussing over the napkin. "And it's an easier walk from your recliner, less distance." He just nodded, accepting it. When Vivian came back, she frowned. "What did you do?" "Made Dad more comfortable," I said, my voice bright. The light was in his eyes. She couldn't argue without looking petty. She pursed her lips and returned to the kitchen. I had moved the primary victim to a position of tactical advantage. He was no longer pinned in a corner. He was by the exit. I checked my watch. 5 p.m. The prosecutor, Harris, had replied to my email. "Call my personal cell at 5:30 p.m., not before." I went to the guest room, locked the door, and made the call. "Harris," he answered, his voice clipped. "Leslie Burke, I have the package. APS case 2538 is active. Dr. Pham, the on-call physician, has been alerted to medication discrepancies and is attempting to contact the victim. He will be alerting the sheriff's department when he cannot, which I will ensure. "What's your timeline, Burke?" he asked. "I am setting the table for an intervention tonight. I will have a neutral third-party witness present at 18:30. I will have full audio and video capture of the interaction. I need a welfare check ready to deploy." There was a pause. "A holiday. You're asking for a welfare check on Thanksgiving." "I am asking for a welfare check on an at-risk adult who is being chemically restrained and financially exploited. Using the holiday as cover, I have the forged signature analysis. I have the structured withdrawal receipt. I have the audio of the assault and the order to destroy evidence." Another pause. "Okay, this is what we'll do. You are not a cop, Burke. You cannot run an interrogation, but you can ask questions as a concerned family member. You get me a clear, unambiguous admission, or a direct, voiced threat against you or him. You get me something that moves this from he said, she said, to imminent danger, and I'll have a car there in 10 minutes. "Understood. How will I signal you?" "You won't," he said. "I'll be listening. Send me the link to your audio stream." I gave him the secure URL. "My team will be monitoring it live, starting at 1800. If you have what we need, we move. If you don't, we wait. And this becomes a formal case on Monday. But if she threatens you, if she tries to physically stop you or him from leaving, that's the threshold. We'll have a judge on standby for the emergency removal order." "What if the stream cuts out?" I asked. "Send a text to this number. One phrase, gravy set. That'll be the trigger. But the live audio is better. Don't break your cover unless you have to." "Understood," I said. "They'll be rolling at 6:40. I hung up. The prosecutor's office would be my real-time audience. I went back to my laptop. I had a standing protocol with Marin, my nurse friend. I sent her a message. "Plan B. I am concerned about oversedation. If I text you the word nutmeg, it means he is showing signs of benzodiazepine overdose, lethargy, slurred speech, respiratory depression. I need you to immediately file an online medical welfare check. It's a different channel from the police. It gets a paramedic to the door. Got it?" "Got it," she replied. "Nutmeg, standing by." I had my extraction plan for him, now for my own, in my room, by the door. I placed my father's warmest winter coat and his walking shoes. Next to it, I placed my own go-bag, a small backpack with my laptop, the encrypted SSD, my keys, and my wallet. If we had to move, we would move fast. The last piece was the final trigger. My Alexa timer gravy shortcut was to exfiltrate data. I needed one to signal my lawyer, Amaya, that the intervention had begun and the evidence was live. I created a new shortcut, the trigger. Alexa, timer gravy off. The action. It would send a single, pre-written email from my Whistlebox account, the one to Amaya Cole. The subject, EM1123 active. The body. Evidence is live. File the TPO and POA petition now. Call me in 60 minutes. The table was set. The turkey was roasting. Vivian was humming in the kitchen, oblivious. She thought she was preparing a feast. She had no idea she was the main course. As I walked out to the living room, I stopped by the dining table. I took out my phone, as if to take a picture of the beautiful table setting. I held it up, aiming. I enabled live photo. "Just getting a shot for Instagram," I said to Rhea, who nodded in approval. I snapped the photo. The 1.5 seconds of audio captured Vivian in the kitchen, shouting at my father. "Elliot, do you want the cheap wine or the good wine? I'll just pick. Your judgment is off today." I saved the photo. Evidence. The guests would be arriving soon, not just my father, my sister, and my stepmother. The audience was expanding. Caleb was coming, and beyond him, unseen, were a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, and the district attorney's office. The dinner was no longer a family meal. It was a hearing, and I had just called it to order. It was 5:35 in the evening. The turkey was resting, filling the house with a rich, savory aroma that felt like a betrayal. I was in the guest room. my command center. The locked door a thin shield against the forced holiday cheer. My laptop screen was a window into the truth. A new message had come in from Amaya Cole. Subject: Urgent, match found. Vivian Rhodes. I opened the encrypted file. Amaya's efficiency was a thing of beauty. Leslie, it began. I ran the background. Vivian Kane is a clean identity. Registered 5 years ago. Concurrent with her marriage to your father. Before that, she was Vivian Rhodes, lived in Arizona, and she has a history. My pulse quickened. 10 years ago, the report continued, Vivian Rhodes was the defendant in a civil suit filed by the children of a wealthy widower in Scottsdale. Allegations: undue influence, abuse of power of attorney, and systematic liquidation of assets. The widower died, and the case was settled out of court. The record sealed. But I found the docket. She's done this before. A cold, methodical anger settled over me. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a career. Amaya's message wasn't finished. I pulled their marriage certificate. The date is 3 weeks after your father's first hip surgery, the one before the complications. He was on a heavy-duty opioid regimen. I cross-referenced that with the durable power of attorney agreement. He signed over full control, financials and medical, to her 4 days after the wedding, while he was, according to the medical timeline, legally sedated. She wasn't just a predator, she was a patient one. She had laid the legal groundwork for this moment while he was incapacitated. But here's the kill shot, Amaya wrote. There's a prenup. Your father's old attorney was smart. It protects his premarital assets, including the lake house. It's ironclad, but it has a termination clause. Section 8B. The agreement is rendered null and void, with total forfeiture of spousal claims, in the event of domestic violence, material fraud, or financial malfeasance. Leslie, when she hit you, she didn't just commit assault. She voided her contract. The fraud voids the rest. She's got nothing. The slap? It wasn't just a moment of lost temper. It was a multi-million-dollar mistake. With the name Vivian Rhodes, I had a new key. I turned back to Northwind Realty, the shell company on the quitclaim deed. I ran the name against its corporate filings. The registered agent, a Mark Jennings, was not a name I recognized. But when I ran Mark Jennings and Vivian Rhodes in the Arizona Civil Court database, I got a hit. He was a co-defendant in the original POA suit. He was her partner. She hadn't just repeated her playbook. She had rehired her team. My next step was to trace the money. The Blue Jay Bank receipt for $9,500 was one piece. My father's bank statements showed the rest. It wasn't just that one withdrawal. It was a pattern. Every 3 days for the last month. A $2,000 cash withdrawal, a $5,000 withdrawal, another $2,000, all separate. All just under the $10,000 federal reporting limit. It was classic structuring. She was draining the accounts in cash, piece by piece, to avoid tripping any alarms. But she couldn't take the cash without authorization. I dug into his email. The account I still had access to. I found it. An email from his personal account to the bank manager. Sent last week. Dear Mr. Henderson, it read. This email is to confirm my authorization for my wife, Vivian, to manage my cash withdrawals for household and recovery expenses as needed. Elliot Mercer. It seemed legitimate, but I knew my father. He didn't write like that. I did what I'm paid to do. I ran a technical header analysis on the email. I traced its origin. The source IP address wasn't from a public cafe. It was from this house, 192.168.1.104. I opened a network scanner on my laptop and mapped the devices connected to the house Wi-Fi. My phone, my laptop, Vivian's tablet, Elliot's iPad, and 104. The device name was Ria's iPhone. A wave of sickness and clarity washed over me. Of course, Vivian wouldn't be so clumsy as to send it herself. She would have used her pawn. Ria, sweetie, your father's hands are too shaky to type. Can you just send this email for him? He asked me to handle it. And Ria, desperate for approval, would have done it without a second thought. This changed everything. Ria wasn't a conspirator. She was a victim. She was an unwitting accomplice, her digital fingerprint used as a weapon against her own family. She was leverage. I could use this to free her. Not just my father. My phone, the one I'd used to call the doctor, buzzed. I had missed a call. 9:05 a.m. Dr. Pham. He had called precisely at 9 a.m., as promised. I had let it go to voicemail. His message was brief. Leslie, this is Dr. Pham. It's 9:05. I have not heard from you. I am assuming you cannot bring your father in. I am now obligated by law to report my concerns. I am contacting the Boulder County Sheriff's Office and Adult Protective Services to request an immediate in-person welfare check. I hope you understand. I understood perfectly. The first official shot had been fired. Completely independent of me, a doctor had formally requested a welfare check. When the police eventually came, they wouldn't be coming just because of my call. They would be coming on the medical authority of a physician. My other phone, my personal one, rang. A blocked number. I answered. Burke. Harris. It was the deputy DA. I'm with the on-call judge. We've seen your brief, the APS case number, and we just got the alert from Dr. Pham. The judge is signing the order. What order? I asked, my voice low. Emergency welfare check, number 1, and number 2, a temporary document and asset seizure warrant. Based on your forgery analysis of the Northwind deed and the bank receipt, he finds probable cause for financial exploitation. When my deputies arrive, they will have the authority to enter, separate and interview your father, and seize any relevant materials. That means the deed, computers, phones, and that safe Caleb mentioned. They can take the whole thing. Good, I said. That's good. But, Burke, he cautioned, this is delicate. We can't remove him unless he states he is in fear or wants to leave. And we can't arrest her on the assault charge unless you are willing to make a statement and press charges on the spot, in front of her. This was the variable. My father's not today defense. What if he's medicated? He's not coherent. That's why the deputies are coming with the APS worker. They'll make a field determination of his capacity, but your audio feed is the key. We are live monitoring. If she threatens you, if she admits to the forgery, if she tries to physically restrain you or your father from leaving, that gives us imminent threat. That's the threshold. We'll be listening for it. You'll get it, I said. I hung up. The net was no longer just set. It was closing. I needed one final, physical piece. The software analysis of the signature was damning, but a real-time, in-person comparison would be theater, and theater is what moves people. I left my room. The house was quiet. Vivian was in the shower. Rhea was in her room. Elliot was dozing in his chair. I went to the large, built-in bookshelf in the great room. It was filled with photo albums and my mother's old books. On the bottom shelf was a carved wooden box, my father's keepsakes. I opened it. Inside, beneath old military dog tags and letters, I found what I was looking for: a stack of old greeting cards, a birthday card I sent him in college, a Christmas card from his brother, an old anniversary card he had written to my mother 20 years ago. I pulled all 3, each one signed. Love, Elliot, or All My Best, Elliot. His signature, his real signature, sharp, fast, angular, impatient. I slipped the cards into the back pocket of my jeans. The forged quitclaim deed was still on the kitchen counter, an act of sheer arrogance. I would lay them side by side. I went back to my room. One last text to Marin, my nurse. Protocol update, I typed. The trigger word is nutmeg high. If you are listening to the stream and you hear me say, this stuffing has a real nutmeg high, or any variation of nutmeg high, it means he is an overdose, and I cannot reach my phone. You are to call 911 directly, not the non-emergency, 911, medical emergency, potential benzodiazepine overdose. Got it? Her reply was instant. Nutmeg high. Copied. Call 911. Leslie. Be careful. I put the phone down. All the pieces were in place. The legal, medical, and law enforcement channels were all active and pointing at this address. The trap was digital, physical, and psychological. Vivian thought she was hosting a holiday. She had no idea she was the guest of honor at an intervention. I walked out of my room, the smell of the turkey thick in the air. It was time for dinner. The turkey was gone, the stuffing decimated, the cranberry sauce a red smear on a glass bowl. The meal had been a 90-minute performance of grotesque normalcy. Vivian, at the head of the table, had been radiant, telling charming anecdotes. Elliot, to her right, had barely eaten. His eyes were heavy-lidded, his responses slow. He was clearly in the grip of the benzodiazepines. His world softened and muted. Rhea had stayed glued to her phone, showing Vivian a post about a celebrity's Thanksgiving, and the two had laughed, a brief, sharp sound that felt alien in the room. I had been monitoring my father's breathing. It was shallow, but not yet dangerously depressed. No need for the nutmeg-high protocol. Not yet. I was also listening to the small, wireless microphone on the sideboard, the one Rhea had perfectly placed. Believing it was a speaker, I could hear the faint, clear amplification of silver on china. The DA's office was listening to this, every word. I stood up and began clearing the plates. The domesticity of the act was the perfect cover. It was the moment of transition, when the performance was winding down, and the guards were low. "That was wonderful. Vivian," I said, my voice neutral as I scraped the plates. I carried them toward the kitchen island. I stopped, turned back, as if a thought had just struck me. I looked at my father. "Dad," I asked, my voice light, conversational. "I was just thinking about the cabin. Are you really sure you want to sell the Arrow Ridge place?" Vivian, who was reaching for Elliot's wine glass, froze. Her hand hovered, her head snapped toward me, her smile tightening. Elliot looked up from his plate. The fog of the medication was thick. "What? Arrow Ridge?" he mumbled. Vivian recovered instantly, laughing a brittle, high-pitched laugh. "Oh, Leslie, don't be silly. We're not bothering your father with complicated decisions right now. He needs to rest." "It just seemed so final," I said, stacking another plate. I saw the Northwind Realty papers on the counter. Looked like it was a done deal. Vivian's eyes flashed, a look of pure, cold venom. She turned back to Elliot, placing her hand on his shoulder, rubbing it, a gesture that looked like affection but was pure, staking ownership. "Sweetie, it's just that paperwork we discussed. A smart financial move. It's better to sell it before you change your mind." There it was, the slip, the half-confession, the implication of his incapacity. My father's head came up. The confusion in his eyes was real, cutting through the medication's haze for a brief, lucid moment. "Change my mind? What are you talking about, Vivian? I never agreed to sell Arrow Ridge." "Of course you did, darling," Vivian said, her voice losing its syrupy edge, becoming strained. "We signed the papers last week. Don't you remember?" I don't remember that," Elliot said, his voice small, uncertain. "You've been so forgetful with the new medication," Vivian said dismissively, patting his shoulder again, as if he were a child. "No," I said, my voice cutting through the room, sharp and clear. I set the plates down on the table. "He doesn't remember because he didn't sign them." Rhea, who had been oblivious, her thumb scrolling, finally looked up, her face pale. She saw the look on Vivian's face. She saw the look on mine. "What are you talking about?" Vivian snapped, her voice dropping. I didn't look at her. I looked at Rhea. My voice was soft, almost gentle. "Rhea, the envelopes Vivian gave you, the ones you were just helping with, they weren't for the roofing contractor, were they?" Rhea's eyes instantly filled with tears. She shrank back. I don't know," she whispered, her gaze flickering to Vivian. "Mom said Dad's hand was too shaky, that it was just for the house repairs. She said he'd already approved it. She said it was just signing for him, to get it done faster. It was just a bunch of envelopes." "She had you sign his name, didn't she?" I asked. "I just did what she told me to," Rhea cried, the phone dropping from her hand. "She said I was helping." You are upsetting your sister, Vivian said, taking a step toward me. And you are upsetting your father. You are ruining Thanksgiving. No, I said, my voice cold and loud, projecting for the microphone. You're lying to him, you're stealing from him, and you are using his daughter as a legal shield for your fraud. I walked to the kitchen counter, to the stack of mail. The Northwind Realty quitclaim deed was still there, an artifact of her supreme arrogance. I picked it up. I walked back to the dining table. With my other hand, I reached into the back pocket of my jeans and pulled out the 3 greeting cards I had taken from his study. I laid them on the table, in front of my father's plate. The Christmas card, the birthday card, the old anniversary card he wrote to my mother. This is your signature, Dad, I said, pointing to the familiar, sharp, angular script. Fast, impatient, yours. Then, I laid the Northwind deed directly next to them. And this, I said, my finger tapping the forged signature line, is the forgery? The silence in the room was absolute. Even Elliot, in his medicated state, could see it. The signature on the deed was rounded, slow, looped. It was a careful, hesitant drawing. It was, unmistakably, Ria's looping. Pretty high school handwriting trying to imitate an old man's. It's not the same, Elliot whispered, his hand trembling as he reached out, his finger tracing the forged name. Vivian's face, the one of the perfect hostess, shattered. It contorted into a mask of pure rage. How dare you, she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. What is this? Are you playing cop? In my house? On Thanksgiving? I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I just pointed, my finger steady, to the dark, scabbed cut on my lip. You did this to me yesterday, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. And then you told him it was smeared lipstick. Violence is violence. Vivian, even on a holiday. Vivian looked from me to Elliot, who was staring at the signatures, and then to the weeping Ria. She was cornered, and she did what all cornered animals do. She attacked. You are insane, she spat at me, her voice dripping with contempt. You're hysterical. You're just jealous. You're angry that you're not in the will. She let out a short, ugly laugh. You want to play cop? Go ahead. Call them. Call the police right now. See who they believe. She leaned in, her smile triumphant. Who do you think they'll trust? Leslie? The loving, devoted wife who is taking care of her sick husband? Or the unhinged, cast-out daughter who shows up for one day, trying to cause trouble? She turned to my father. Elliot, tell her to stop this nonsense. Now. My father looked at the forged signature. He looked at my cut lip. He looked at his wife's raging face, and he just shook his head. A gesture of profound, defeated exhaustion. He was silent. That's what I thought, Vivian sneered. She had won. You're right, I said softly. I should stop this nonsense. I walked over to the sideboard, to the small, black wireless microphone that Ria had so helpfully placed among the candles. Vivian tensed, thinking I was going to grab it. I just tapped the top of it lightly with my index finger. Alexa, I said, my voice calm and clear. Timer gravy off. The main speaker in the ceiling, the one Ria had linked, chirped. Okay, gravy timer canceled. The signal was sent. The email was on its way to Amaya. The DA, listening live, had just heard the forgery admission from Ria. He had heard my public accusation of violence, and he had heard Vivian's explicit challenge. Go ahead and call. See who they believe. Ria looked up, her face a mess of tears and mascara, the implications finally dawning on her. Leslie, please, she whispered, her voice cracking. Please don't. You'll ruin him. You'll ruin everything. I walked back to her. I put my hand on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity, not accusation. I leaned in, whispering, so only she could hear, though I knew the high-gain microphone would catch it. I'm not ruining him, I said, my voice low and firm. I'm protecting him, and I'm protecting you. Vivian opened her mouth. her face flushed with victory and adrenaline, ready to deliver the final, vicious tirade. And then the side doorbell rang, the one that led from the driveway to the kitchen. My watch read 6:30 p.m. on the dot. Everyone froze. Vivian looked baffled, then annoyed by the interruption. "Who on earth is that?" I smiled, a small, tight smile. "That's Caleb," I said. "I invited him for pie." I walked to the side door and opened it. Caleb stood there, a bottle of wine in his hand, a warm plaid shirt on, the perfect picture of grandfatherly calm. "Caleb, come on in," I said brightly, holding the door open. "Leslie, Elliot, my man," he said, his voice booming as he walked into the tense, silent room. He stopped. He was a retired firefighter. He had walked into 1,000 scenes of domestic crisis. He knew how to read a room. He saw the legal papers and greeting cards spread on the table. He saw Rhea, her face buried in her hands, weeping. He saw my cut lip. He saw Vivian, her face pale and tight with rage. "Am I interrupting something?" he asked, his voice steady. "No, Caleb," I said, pulling out the empty chair next to mine. "You're right on time. Please, sit down. We were just finishing up." Vivian was trapped. She couldn't scream at me in front of the neighbor. She was forced, visibly, to swallow her rage, to recompose her face into the mask of the hostess. "Caleb," she said, her voice strained, almost a gasp. "How nice. Let me get you a plate for dessert." "Thank you, Vivian," he said, taking the seat. He placed the wine on the table, his eyes meeting mine for just a second. He was no longer a guest. He was a witness. "Vivian, don't worry about the pie just yet," I said, my voice quiet. But it sliced through her manufactured hostess panic. I turned to Caleb. He had taken in the scene, his gaze resting on the scattered greeting cards and the official-looking Northwind deed. His face was professionally impassive. "Caleb," I said, "I apologize for this. This isn't what I invited you over for. But you texted me, last night. You saw something by the garage?" Vivian, who was holding a pie server, stiffened. "Leslie, we have a guest. This is inappropriate." "It's all right, Vivian," Caleb said, his voice a steady, calm baritone. He never took his eyes off me, but he was speaking to the room. "Yes, Leslie, I did. It was late, maybe around 11 p.m. I was letting my dog out for the last time. I saw a dark pickup, no company name on the side, backed right up to your garage. The doors were open. 2 men were loading something." "Something?" I prompted, keeping my voice level. "Something heavy," he said, "and compact. They were struggling with it. It looked like a small safe, a mini safe, dark gray or black. They got it onto the truck bed, covered it with a tarp, and drove off. I figured you all were just getting some extra security installed." "A safe?" My father's voice was a dry, papery rustle. He looked at Vivian, the fog in his eyes momentarily parting. "Vivian, we don't own a safe." Vivian's hand, the one holding the server, was shaking. It was nothing, Elliot, just some old filing cabinets. For insurance papers. Caleb, you must have been mistaken. It was dark." "Ma'am, with all due respect, it was a safe," Caleb said, his voice polite but absolutely firm. "I was a firefighter for 30 years. I've opened more of them than I can count. I know what a fire-rated safe looks like when it's being carried." "A safe," I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "To hold what? The cash?" Vivian's head snapped toward me, her eyes narrowing. "What cash?" I took my phone from my pocket. I didn't open the audio files. Not yet. I opened the photo gallery. I enlarged the high-resolution image of the Blue Jay Bank receipt. I slid the phone across the polished table, the screen gleaming under the dining room light. It stopped directly in front of her. "This cash," I said, $9,500, withdrawn from my father's account 2 days ago. That's a very specific number, isn't it? Just shy of the $10,000 limit that would trigger a mandatory federal report. That's clever. Vivian, it's a crime called structuring. You must have been gathering it for a while. Where is it? In the safe that Caleb saw them move? Rhea, who had been crying silently, now let out a loud, gasping sob. Vivian stared at the phone. Her face was ashen. She tried to laugh, a dry, brittle sound that cracked in her throat. You think you're so smart. You think you found something. That? That was for the new roof, for the new physical therapy equipment, for his care. She shoved the phone back toward me. I manage the finances in this house. I manage them better than any of you ever could, better than he ever did. He's not capable. He's sick. Not capable of managing his own money? I pressed. Or not capable of stopping you? This is ridiculous, Vivian said, her voice rising, trying to regain control by standing. This dinner is over. Caleb, I am so sorry. Sit down, Vivian. My voice wasn't loud, but it had an authority that stopped her. She turned. Elliot, she tried, her voice now shifting to a desperate, victimized plea. Honey, make her stop. She is attacking me. She is ruining our Thanksgiving. Tell her to stop. My father looked at her. His hand, resting on the arm of his chair, had begun to tremble. It wasn't a shake. It was a fine, persistent, pill-induced tremor. He tried to reach for his water glass, but his fingers fumbled, skittering against the side. He's over-sedated. Vivian, I said, my voice sharp and cold. I moved to my father's side, ignoring her. I wrapped his fumbling hand with my own, steadying it, guiding the glass to his lips. Drink some water, Dad. He took a small, rattling sip. His eyes were wide, struggling to focus on my face. Leslie, he whispered, his voice thin. I'm right here, Dad. I looked at my watch. It was 6:39 p.m. I made a mental note. I noted the tremor, the slurred speech, the pinprick pupils. You've been giving him too much, haven't you? The benzodiazepine, keeping him quiet, keeping him compliant so he wouldn't ask questions about the safe, or the money, or the lake house. I gave him what the doctor prescribed, she shrieked, the mask of the hostess burning away. You've been refilling a 30-day prescription every 11 days, I stated. Doctor, Pham is already aware. The mention of the doctor's name landed like a physical blow. She actually recoiled, her hand flying to her mouth. You spoke to his doctor? You have no right. I have every right, just as I have a right not to be assaulted. I didn't assault you, she screamed. It was an accident. You clumsy, hysterical. You walked right into the cabinet. You said so yourself. No, Vivian, I said, my voice flat. I pulled my other phone from my back pocket, the one that had been recording on the kitchen counter. I didn't say that. You did. I tapped the screen. I didn't need to amplify it. In the silence, it was deafening. I pressed play and set the phone in the middle of the table, next to the ruins of the meal. The recording, captured by the smart doorbell's microphone, filled the room. My voice, clear. Committing fraud. Vivian's voice, high and sharp. You are a guest here. Then, the sickening, sharp smack of the slap, echoing on the recording, Rhea's voice, a horrified gasp. Oh my God! Vivian's voice, cold and commanding. Rhea, delete that. Do not make a scene. Do not shame this family. Delete it right now. A beat of silence, and then the final, undeniable command. Vivian's voice, louder, closer to the microphone. You will not call anyone. I pressed stop. The recording ended. The silence that rushed in to fill the void was terrible. It was broken only by my father's ragged breathing. Caleb was staring at Vivian, his face carved from stone, his disappointment and disgust palpable. Rhea collapsed. Her head dropped to the table, her arms covering it, and she let out a broken, strangled wail. She made me, she choked out, her words muffled by her arms. She made me delete it. She said it would ruin the family, that it would ruin my brand. She said that I was making it worse. I didn't know. I didn't know about the money. I promise. I didn't know. Vivian was cornered. Her face was white. The forgery was on the table. The theft was confirmed by a witness. The assault was on the audio. She looked at my father, who was staring at her, his face a gray mask of dawning, medicated horror. She looked at Caleb, who was shaking his head in silent, damning judgment. She looked at me, her predator's gaze meeting my own. And then, her entire posture changed. The rage dissolved. Her face went slack, her eyes wide with a new theatrical panic. Her hand, the one with the gaudy ring that had cut my lip, flew to her chest. "Oh," she gasped, her voice suddenly weak, fluttering. "Oh, my heart." She staggered, grabbing the back of her chair for support. I can't breathe." Caleb, the retired firefighter, instinctively moved, his training kicking in. He started to rise from his chair. "Stay seated, Caleb," I commanded. My voice was sharp, cutting. He looked at me, surprised by the order, and then sat back down. Vivian's eyes widened. This was not the reaction she had anticipated. "Leslie," she gasped, her hand moving to her throat. "Please, I think I'm having a heart attack. Call 911. It was a brilliant, desperate performance. The final gambit. Divert the crisis. Make yourself the victim. I didn't move. I just watched her. "No," I said. "What?" she breathed, her acting faltering for a split second. I said, "No, you're not having a heart attack. Vivian, you're staging a diversion, but it's a good try." You would let me die?" she whispered, clutching her chest harder, trying to force the terror into her eyes. "Caleb," I said, never taking my eyes off her. "Let's assess. Tachycardia? Unlikely. Shortness of breath? She's been screaming for 5 minutes. Diaphoresis? No sweating? Skin pallor? She's flushed with rage. Not ashen. She's faking." Caleb nodded slowly. His eyes narrowed, the professional returning. "No visible signs of cardiac distress. Leslie, you're right." The act evaporated. The hand fell from her chest. The manufactured panic was instantly replaced by the cold, flat rage I knew so well. You bitch," she breathed. "This is over," I said. I stood up straight, placing my hands flat on the table, turning the dinner table into a lectern. "For the record," I stated, my voice loud and clear, projecting to the microphone. "I am now informing all parties present, Elliot Mercer, Rhea Mercer, and our witness, Caleb Harris, that I will be filing a formal report with the Boulder County Sheriff's Department and Adult Protective Services." I pointed to the deeds and the cards, for financial exploitation and felony forgery. I pointed to the amber pill bottle on the counter, for medical abuse and coercive chemical restraint. I pointed to my own cut lip, and for physical assault, and I am willing to press charges. "Leslie, no," Rhea whimpered, her face still buried. I ignored her. I looked at my father. He was staring at Vivian. The fog had finally cleared, burned away by the acid of the truth. He had heard the audio. He had seen the forgery. He had seen her lie. He had seen her fake a heart attack to escape. His trembling hand rose, his index finger shaking as he pointed it at his wife. His voice was a dry, broken whisper, but in the dead silent room, it was as loud as a gunshot. "Vivian, what have you done?" Vivian stared at him, her face a blank mask, the performance over, the true self exposed. I looked at the clock on the oven, the red digital numbers, which had been counting down the seconds of this terrible meal, now read 6:41 p.m. 6:41. Right on time. As if summoned by the clock itself, the sharp, authoritative sound of a heavy knock echoed from the front door. Not a neighborly tap. This was a knock with purpose. It was the sound of the outside world, finally breaching the wall of "not today." The heavy official knock echoed again. Harder this time, a brutal finality to it. No one at the table moved. It was the sound of the outside world, the one Vivian had held at bay with the shield of a holiday. Finally breaking down the door, Vivian's head snapped up, her eyes wild with a new, frantic panic. "Who is that? Tell them to go away, we're having dinner." "I'll get it," I said, my voice calm. I walked past the ruined table, past my father, who was still looking at his wife with a dawning, medicated horror. I went to the front door. Through the peephole, I saw the dark green uniforms of the Boulder County Sheriff's Department. Beside them, a woman in a practical parka, holding a clipboard. I opened the door. The cold night air rushed in, a clean, sharp contrast to the stale, heavy atmosphere of the house. "Leslie Burke?" the lead officer asked. He was older, his face weathered, his eyes sharp and missing nothing. "Yes, officer, please, come in." Two deputies, a man and a woman, and the civilian woman from Adult Protective Services stepped inside. Their presence, the creak of their duty belts, the solid thud of their boots on the concrete floor, instantly changed the power dynamic of the room. "I'm Sergeant Miller," the lead officer said. "This is Deputy Hayes, and this is Ms. Thorne from Adult Protective Services. We are here on a court-approved welfare check for Mr. Elliot Mercer." Vivian was on her feet, the performance of the heart attack completely gone. "A welfare check? He's fine. We are fine. She did this." She pointed a trembling finger at me. "My stepdaughter. She's hysterical. She's making all of this up in your ear. It is Thanksgiving. You have no right to be here." Sergeant Miller looked past me, his gaze sweeping the room. He saw the table, a landscape of half-eaten food and scattered legal documents. He saw Rhea, weeping silently. He saw Caleb, the stoic witness by the door. He saw my father, pale and trembling in his chair. Then his gaze settled on Vivian. "Ma'am," he said, his voice flat and unimpressed, "the law doesn't take holidays." I stepped forward, pulling my Halcyon Risk Labs ID from my back pocket and handing it to him. "Sergeant Miller, I'm Leslie Burke. I'm the one who filed the supplementary report to APS case 2538. Dr. Pham also contacted your office." "We're aware," he said, handing my ID back. "You have the evidence package you mentioned?" "I do." I handed him a single, folded sheet of paper. "That is the SHA 256 checksum for the complete evidence file. The secure cloud storage path and the access key are on the same sheet. The district attorney's office has been monitoring a live audio feed from this microphone." I tapped the small black device on the sideboard. "The chain of custody is as follows. All files were time-synced via NTP, forensically imaged from source devices, and uploaded to the secure volume. The package includes forensic analysis of the forged signature on the Northwind deed, which is on the table, and high-resolution photos of my injuries." Miller looked at the paper, then at me. His expression didn't change, but I saw the shift. I was no longer a hysterical daughter. I was a professional. "Thank you, Ms. Burke." Ms. Thorne, the APS worker, stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but carried an undeniable authority. "Mrs. Kane," she said, "we need to speak with Mr. Mercer, alone." "I am his wife. I am his caregiver." Vivian spat. "Anything you have to say to him, you can say in front of me." "No, Ms." Thorne said, her voice hardening. "This is a private interview. Sergeant?" Miller nodded to his deputy. "Deputy Hayes, please escort Mrs. Kane to the living room." "Ma'am," he said to Vivian, "you are required to remain there and not interfere with this investigation or any of the witnesses." "Interfere? Witnesses? This is my home." "Ma'am," Miller's voice dropped, losing all patience. "If you interfere, I will charge you with obstruction of justice. Am I clear?" The blood drained from Vivian's face. The authority she had wielded in this house for years evaporated. Deputy Hayes gently but firmly took her by the elbow and guided her out of the dining room. "Ms." Thorne pulled a chair up to my father. Caleb, sensing the shift, stood up. I'll wait outside. Leslie." "Thank you." "Caleb, Sergeant, this is Caleb Harris. the witness who saw the safe being moved last night. Miller nodded. Sir, if you could just wait in the kitchen, I'll need your statement in a moment. Caleb nodded and moved. The room was now just me, Miller, Ms. Thorne, and my father. Rhea was still at the table, a forgotten ghost. Ms. Thorne focused her attention completely on Elliot. Mr. Mercer? My name is Carol. I'm here to help. Can you tell me how you're feeling right now? Confused, my father whispered. His hands were shaking violently. She wouldn't do that. That signature. It wasn't... Sir, Ms. Thorne said gently, I need to ask you about your medication. Who gives you your pills? Vivian, he said. She keeps them in her bathroom, so I don't forget. And your bank accounts, Mr. Mercer? Do you check them yourself? No, it's too complicated. The computer, Vivian handles the money. She said I didn't need to worry. She said she was protecting our assets. Did you give her permission to sell your lake house at Arrow Ridge? My father looked at her, his eyes struggling to clear. No, I told her no. I love that house. I wouldn't sell Arrow Ridge. Are you afraid of your wife, Mr. Mercer? He looked down at his trembling hands. He was silent for a long, painful moment. I'm tired, he whispered. I want the fighting to stop. He's not coherent, I said, stepping forward. He's been over-medicated. I counted the pills. The pharmacy logs show 2 early refills. I see that. Ms. Thorne said, making a note on her clipboard. The pharmacy records you provided were very clear. We are recommending an immediate suspension of Mrs. Kane's control over his medical care, effective immediately. She looked over at Rhea, who was watching, her face pale and streaked with tears. Ms. Mercer? Rhea? Rhea jumped. Yes? We would like to place your father's medications in your temporary custody, under medical supervision. A visiting nurse will be here tomorrow morning, along with Dr. Pham, to do a full medical evaluation. Can you handle that? Yes, of course. Whatever you need, Rhea whispered, nodding. Sergeant Miller stepped forward. Okay, Ms. Burke, the warrant. He pulled a folded document from his coat. The DA and the on-call judge have signed an asset seizure warrant, based on your evidence of financial exploitation. You mentioned a safe. In the garage, I said. Caleb saw them moving it. Mr. Harris, you're with me, Miller said. The 3 of us, Miller, Caleb, and I, walked to the side door and into the cold garage. It was in that corner, Caleb said, pointing with a gloved hand. Right by the door. They were struggling with it. Miller shone his heavy flashlight. The space was empty, but there were fresh scrape marks on the concrete floor. They already moved it, Miller said. Wait, I said. Caleb, you said it was dark. Are you sure they got it loaded? I walked to the back of the garage, behind a large stack of old tires, tucked deep in the shadows. I saw it. Sergeant, it's here. Miller and Caleb came over. It was a dark gray, metal mini-safe, about 2 feet tall. That's it, Caleb said, nodding. That's the one. They must have given up, or maybe they were planning to come back for it. It was heavy. She didn't get it out, Miller said. He and Caleb carried it. It was at least 70 pounds. Back into the kitchen, placing it on the floor with a heavy thud. Vivian, watched by Deputy Hayes, stared at it from the living room, her face a mask of white-hot terror. Ma'am, Miller called out, we are seizing this safe. Do you have the combination? I don't know what that is, she yelled, her voice breaking. It's just old papers. You can't. Doesn't matter. Miller retrieved a heavy-duty pry bar and a small toolkit from his bag. It was not a high-end safe. It took him less than 3 minutes of focused, brutal work. With a loud crack, the hinge snapped, and the door swung open. We all looked inside. It wasn't full, but what was there was chilling. A single, blue bank book from Blue Jay Bank, a small, black USB thumb drive with a handwritten label on masking tape, NR closing, Northwind Realty closing, and a stack of 3, crisp, new business checks, from my father's Blue Jay account. All 3 were blank, except for the signature line. Each one was pre-signed, E. Mercer, in that same slow, rounded, looping, forged handwriting. Miller picked up the checks, handling them by the edges. He placed them in an evidence bag. He bagged the USB drive. He bagged the bank book. Miller's radio crackled. "Sergeant, D.A. Harris is on the line for Ms. Burke. He's been updated on the audio." Miller handed me his radio. I pressed the button. "Burke?" "Leslie, it's Harris." The DA's voice was crisp. "We heard Ria's confession about the forgery. We heard Vivian's challenge. We heard the entire exchange. The judge is satisfied. We are preparing the arrest warrant for Kane. Pending confirmation of the safe's contents. We have threshold." "Copy that," I said. "We have the safe, and we have 3 pre-signed, forged checks." "Good. One more thing. We need to lock down the bank email. My tech specialist tracked the IP you sent. He needs confirmation on who sent that email from Ms. Mercer's device." I clicked off the radio. I looked at Ria. She was trembling. "Ria, they know the email to the bank, the one authorizing the withdrawals, came from your phone. You need to tell Sergeant Miller the truth, right now." Ria stood up. She looked at Miller, her face a mess. It was her, Vivian. She asked me to. She said Dad's hands were too shaky to type. She forwarded me the text for the email, and she just told me to click send from Dad's email account, which was logged in on my phone. I didn't know what it meant. I thought I was helping. I swear." Miller made a note. "She had you send it," he stated. "Thank you for your honesty, ma'am. We've noted that as coerced assistance, not willful intent." Ria let out a breath she seemed to have been holding all night, and she collapsed back into her chair. Miller stood up. "Ms. Burke, one last thing. Your assault report." He took out a small digital camera. "I've seen the photos you submitted, but I need to take my own for the file, and I need your verbal statement." I stood under the bright kitchen light. I pointed to the dark cut on my lip. At approximately 12:05 p.m. yesterday, November 26th, Vivian Kane struck me on the left side of my face with her open right hand. She was wearing several rings, one of which cut my lip. The assault was unprovoked and followed a confrontation about her financial activities. It was captured on audio, which you have. I am willing to sign a formal complaint and testify in court. Miller finished taking the photos. "Thank you, Ms. Burke. That's what we need." He put the camera away. His radio crackled again. He listened, then nodded. "Understood." He looked at me. "The DA confirms. The evidence from the safe is sufficient. They are preparing the warrant. But for tonight, this is a civil matter. Ms. Thorne is recommending immediate removal of Mr. Mercer from the premises for his safety, pending a full medical and capacity hearing." "No," my father said, his voice stronger. This is my home." "Dad," I said, "you can't stay here. Not with her." "He's right," Miller said, "and Mrs. Kane is not leaving. Not yet." "What?" I said, the blood draining from my face. "You're not arresting her?" "The warrant is being prepared, but this is a holiday weekend," Miller said. "The DA wants the forgery on the checks confirmed by the state lab before we proceed with the arrest. It's procedural. We have the evidence. We've seized her passport, which was in the safe, so she is not a flight risk. But for tonight, she stays here, and he nodded at my father, has to go." Sergeant Miller's radio crackled again. He put it to his ear, listened, and his whole posture changed. He looked not at me, but at the laptop bag I'd brought out from the guest room. "Ms. Burke," he said, his voice now clipped, professional. "D.A. Harris is on a secure video line. He wants to speak to you, your father, and Mrs. Kane, immediately. He's with the on-call judge." This was it, the final hearing. "Right here," I said, clearing a space on the ruined dining table. I opened my own encrypted laptop. the prosecutor's office, listening to the feed. Would have my secure credentials. A video call request popped up. I accepted. The face of Deputy D.A. Harris filled the screen. He was in a stark, brightly lit room. Beside him, an older woman with tired, intelligent eyes, wearing a judicial robe, Judge Alarcon. Ms. Burke, Sergeant Miller, thank you, Harris said, his voice tinny but clear. We have been monitoring the audio feed for the last 40 minutes. We have heard Ms. Rhea Mercer's admission to forging her father's signature at her stepmother's direction. We have heard Mrs. Kane's verbal challenge. We have heard your formal declaration of assault and your intent to press charges. We have seen the evidence from the safe, courtesy of Sergeant Miller's body cam. He looked past me, his gaze focusing on someone else. Mrs. Vivian Kane, we have sufficient probable cause, based on live testimony and digital evidence, to proceed with multiple charges. He began to list them, each word a hammer blow in the silent room. 1. Adult assault against Leslie Burke. 2. Felony forgery for the quitclaim deed and the pre-signed checks. 3. Financial structuring related to the $9,500 withdrawal and others. And 4. A pending, broader charge of financial and medical elder abuse. Vivian, who had been standing silent, held captive by Deputy Hayes in the living room doorway, made a sound. It was not a gasp. It was a laugh, a high, thin, terrible sound of a string stretched too far, snapping. Charges? She said, her voice trembling with a rage that was no longer controlled. She stepped forward, brushing past the deputy, who moved to block her. But Miller held up a hand. Let her speak, he commanded. Vivian advanced on the laptop, on the image of the prosecutor, her face a mask of furious, righteous indignation. You people, you sit there, in your offices, and you know nothing. She turned, her eyes sweeping the room, landing on my father. He was the audience she had always played to. I did it for him, she screamed, her hand stabbing the air toward Elliot. For his safety. You think this is easy? He's a child. He can't manage his money. He can't even remember to take his pills. He would have given everything away to her, she snarled, pointing at me. Or lost it all on some stupid investment. I protected him. I did what I had to do. By stealing his house? I asked, my voice cold. By securing our assets, she shrieked. That lake house? He was never going to sell it. He was going to let it rot, just like his first marriage. I was making an executive decision. The money, that cash, it's for his care. The care I am giving him. The care I deserve to be paid for. I gave up my life for him. And you? She spun on me, her eyes burning. You waltz in here, on a holiday, with your judgment and your little spy tricks, and you ruin everything. Everything I built. It was all for his own good. It was the final, fatal confession. The self-revelation of a predator who believed her control was the same as love. She wasn't just admitting to the crimes. She was providing the motive, live, on a recorded video call with a judge and a prosecutor. On the screen, D.A. Harris didn't even blink. He just nodded, a single, final gesture, to Sergeant Miller. Sergeant, we have what we need. The threshold for immediate action is met. Please proceed. Vivian didn't understand. She was still catching her breath from her tirade. Proceed with what? Are you listening to me? He is incapable. I am in charge here. Sergeant Miller took a step forward. He was no longer a peacekeeper. He was an instrument of the law. Vivian Kane, he said, his voice formal, all traces of discussion gone. He pulled a pair of steel handcuffs from the case on his belt. Vivian stared at them. The reality of the moment finally broke through her narcissistic rage. What are you doing? She whispered. Vivian Kane, Miller repeated, his voice resonating in the room. You are under arrest for assault, forgery, and exploitation of an at-risk adult. He reached for her arm. She tried to pull away, a frantic, reflexive jerk. No, you can't. It's Thanksgiving. Elliot, Elliot, do something! But my father just sat there, his face ashen, watching the woman he loved, the woman who had held him captive, finally face the consequences. Deputy Hayes stepped in, taking Vivian's other arm. "Ma'am, put your hands behind your back." "No, get off of me," she screamed. But they were professionals. It was fast. With a sharp metallic click-click, the cuffs were on. The sound was obscene in the quiet dining room, a brutal punctuation to the holiday meal. The smell of the cold steel seemed to cut right through the rich, heavy scent of the turkey and the pie. Sergeant Miller turned her around to face him. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed for you." Vivian was no longer screaming. She was silent, her body rigid, her face a mask of stunned, abject defeat. The performance was over. As Deputy Hayes began to lead her toward the front door, my father's voice, stronger than I had heard it in years, cut through the room. "Leslie." I turned to him. He was looking at me, his eyes finally tragically clear. The fog was gone, burned away by the arrest. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with a shame that was almost too painful to witness. "I'm so sorry, baby. I think I knew. I didn't want to see it." He looked at the door his wife had just been taken through. "It shouldn't have been not today. It should have been right now. The first time. I'm so sorry." I went to him, putting my hands on his shaking shoulders. "I know. Dad, I know. It's over." On the laptop screen, Judge Alarcon spoke. "Ms. Burke, given the circumstances, I am issuing an emergency temporary no-contact order, effective immediately. Vivian Kane is barred from contacting or approaching you or your father in any way. Ms. Thorne, is the APS plan in place?" Ms. Thorne, who had been watching from the corner, stepped forward. "Yes, Your Honor, Dr. Pham will be at Ms. Burke's residence at 9 a.m. tomorrow for a full medical evaluation of Mr. Mercer. A home care nurse will be assigned pending a full-capacity hearing." "Rhea," I said, turning to my sister. She was watching the front door, her face a blank canvas of shock. "Rhea." She looked at me, her eyes empty. They took her." "Yes," I said. "Now, you have a choice. You can be a victim, or you can be a witness. You need to cooperate, fully." She just nodded, numb. She picked up her phone, the one she had used to send the email, and handed it to Miller. "Here, the passcode is my birthday, 10/10/98. I'll write down everything. I'll tell them everything. I'm so sorry. Dad, I'm so sorry. Leslie." "It's noted, ma'am," Miller said, bagging the phone. "We appreciate your cooperation." "Mr. Mercer," D.A. Harris said from the screen, "we have one last piece of business. Mrs. Kane's power of attorney is, for all intents and purposes, void, based on the criminal malfeasance. However, we need to formally revoke it and appoint a temporary independent guardian for your financial estate to protect you until the hearing. I have the documents here. We can do this verbally, on the record." He guided my father, his voice patient, through the legal recitations. A lawyer from a neutral, court-appointed trust company was brought onto the video call, introduced, and accepted temporary. Emergency power of attorney over my father's finances. In 5 minutes, Vivian's entire infrastructure of control was dismantled. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer," Harris said. "That's all for tonight. Sergeant, we'll see you for the debrief." The video call ended. The room was silent again, but it was a different silence. It was the clean, cold, empty silence of an ended storm. Caleb, who had been watching from the kitchen, stepped forward. "Elliot," he said gently, "son, you can't stay here. Not tonight. The house is it's a scene." I have nowhere to go," my father whispered, looking around the room that was no longer his. "You're coming with me," I said, grabbing the go bag and his coat I had stashed by the door. "You're coming to my apartment in Boulder." "I'll drive you," Caleb said, already getting his keys. "I'll drive you both. Rhea, you coming, honey?" Rhea looked around the room, at the ruined meal, at the empty chair where her stepmother had sat. I can't be here," she whispered. "Yes, please, I'll come." Caleb helped me get my father to his feet. We bundled him into his coat. He moved like an old man, his strength gone, but his shame had been replaced by a kind of fragile relief. Rhea grabbed her purse, her hands shaking so hard she could barely zip it. As we walked out, Sergeant Miller was directing a forensics deputy who had just arrived. "I want photos of the entire table," he was saying. "The papers, the food, the glasses, bag the Northwind deed and the greeting cards as evidence, 104 through 108. The dinner table, the symbol of our family's denial, was now officially a civilian crime scene. The drive to Boulder was silent. Caleb drove, his big, steady hands on the wheel. I sat in the back with my father, his head resting on my shoulder, his breathing evening out as he finally, truly, slept. Rhea sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, the reflection of the highway lights washing over her tear-streaked, pale face. We got them settled into my apartment. I put my father in my bed, took off his shoes, and covered him with a blanket. He was asleep before his head hit the pillow. Rhea curled up on the sofa, and I gave her a glass of water. It was almost midnight. The day was over. I sat at my own kitchen table and opened my laptop. The adrenaline was finally fading, leaving a deep, profound ache. I had the hearing on Monday morning, the one for the permanent restraining order. I had to catalog everything. I opened a new, secure document. I typed in the case number, I typed the date, and I started my report. The first line I wrote, the one that summarized the entire terrible necessary day. Justice doesn't take holidays. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from today. So drop a comment below and let's share our thoughts. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give us your support by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.